What's cracking, guys? Bruce Mattson, your host of the show of Metric Scout Fantasy Football. Today, I'm going over some cheap buys at running back. Guys that you can get in your league who's a little bit undervalued. We're using recent Dynasty ADP from DynastyLeagueFootball.com. So their December edition of ADP. We're going off that as a guide. And then I'm picking a couple guys off that list as buy lows or cheap gets that we can kick the tires for. And I say kick the tires for because our mentality is to try to get the player on the cheap, not consider him a buy or a sell. It's whatever happens in the economy that your league or leagues are in, because every league's different. Every dynasty manager values these players in a different light. So what works for me may not be working for you, and what works for you may not be working for that guy. And we have all kinds of people viewing the channel, so I'm going to keep things kind of broad. But going to DLF's December ADP, one buy low. And this one's going to be a little higher guy, and then I'm going to go a little bit lower throughout the ranks. The first guy I'm going to recommend off the list. Every time we do a roll-up in ADP, I'll bring someone else out. But the first guy we're going to go over is Derrick Henry, being valued as RB15, being drafted 34th overall in startup mock drafts. He's age 27, been out for a bit with an injury. Feel like it's been forever, but he's had 5 RB1 weeks this year. 3 of those weeks were over 30 fantasy points. 27 years old. He's an older running back. He's a depreciating asset. We do not expect him to exceed in value too much. Probably hover around this spot a little bit before father time sets in. However, if your team's built, you got wide receivers out the wazoo, you got a couple running backs, you're good at quarterback, your team's good. Your team's good, you're making the playoffs, you think you're going to be making the playoffs for a bit, and you have extra assets to package up a deal, you may want to kick the tires at Henry. See if you can get him for a couple firsts and maybe a little something. Just see what you can do with that trade negotiation. I would not be paying up for him. I would not be trying to get him at equal value. I'd be just seeing what you can get. See if you can get him at a discount. Again, he's 27 years old and he's been out for a bit, and you may be able to catch some fantasy managers napping. And it really depends on your league. Your managers in your league may value him as a top tier back still, or you may be in a league where the guy rostering him just does not feel like he's going to be able to hold on to him for the long term, liking some of the younger players, willing to get out. You never know until you kick the tires. But this ADP, RB15, after having 5 RB1 weeks, 3 of them over 30 fantasy points in PPR, is an indicator that we may be able to get him on the cheap. Once the rookies get in, once we get a little farther removed, he may drop a little bit, maybe even further in ADP, making him easier to get. So you may want to even try this when rookie drafts set in, when those picks increase in value, if you're looking to get Derrick Henry. The next guy I'm thinking about kicking the tires on, and this is one I'm probably going to try to get. Personally, I would have done it a little sooner. I think his value is going to increase throughout the offseason, and I'm talking about J.K. Dobbins, being valued as RB18 off the board in mock drafts, 41.25 overall. And you got to think, the Ravens this year got 853 rushing yards out of Devontae Freeman, Le'Veon Bell, and Latavius Murray. Imagine what J.K. Dobbins can do if he had a full workload. They have 64 targets to the running backs, so you can't really say Lamar Jackson and company. When they run, they steal a lot of targets from the RB. 64 targets is good enough to get the job done in the passing game when you're catching checkdowns. Imagine J.K. Dobbins, healthy, with his burst, with his ability to make plays in the open field, getting this volume, getting this workload, taking this meat that's been left on the table and just eating it, because that's what J.K. Dobbins would do in this situation. This is a team that wants to run the ball. They're not afraid to pass it. We saw that earlier in the season, but they want to run the football. That is their identity. J.K. Dobbins could benefit from that, and I could see him going off. Remember, Gus Johnson could be going back too, but Dobbins is the premier Dynasty asset going into the offseason until he got hurt. J.K. Dobbins, though, when he comes back, in the next 6 months or so, once we see a more healthy training camp, workouts, everything else over the summer, his value is going to jump. It's going to increase, and that's going to be sooner than later. I want Dobbins on a lot of my rosters. Been trying to get him previously. I'm going to try and get him again. Dobbins is a guy I would go after. Another running back that I want to recommend chasing, kicking the tires for, see if you can catch him on a discount, even cheaper than ADP. However you can do it, just see. It's better to be told no than just sit there in silence. And that's Tony Pollard. Right now, he's being drafted as the RB30, 80.25 overall off the board in ADP. He's 24 years old. He'll be a free agent in 2022. He's averaging 3.75 yards after contact per attempt and is averaging 5.7 yards per attempt. He's got speed, he's got burst, and we're not really expecting him to jump to being an RB1 or maybe even a consistent RB2, but he'd be a good guy on the back of our rosters, good guy as a flex spot, a good guy to use as just a speculative asset just in case he gets a full workload somewhere down the line. Ezekiel Elliott is getting older. Ezekiel Elliott is showing his age. What happens if he's out for an extended amount of time? How much will they lean on Tony Pollard? What would he do in those soft matchups with a full workload? How would that look like? We've seen small instances of that. He has 1 RB1 week this year, 4 RB2 weeks. He's been running pretty good as of lately. I could see Tony Pollard improving his stock if something happened to Zeke. I could see that. I can also see him being a good plug-and-play asset who could help your fantasy team out if your running backs get hurt. If you need someone to fill that flex. If the worst happens. Also going to be a free agent in 2022. Not that old of a running back. Has a lot of tread on the tires. Still has the speed. Still has his explosiveness. I feel like at this price tag, you're getting a running back who can excel and get you fantasy points and still has a lot of tread on the tires and be helpful for your dynasty team for a number of years. And that's a good asset to invest in. Price tag, 80 overall, maybe a little high, depends on what's left on the board. There are probably some speculative young assets still there, but at RB30 on the trade market, you might be able to get them for dirt cheap, especially when our rookie picks start to increase in value come May. You may be able to get him for a second, maybe a third, and another young prospect that you're willing to let go of to get Pollard. Whatever it is, these prices that you bring up, they're philosophical because these leagues are all different. People value these players different. I've been in leagues where nobody trades. I've been in leagues where there have been so many trades you can't keep up with people's rosters. I've been in leagues where you just see crazy trades pulled off. I've been in leagues where people are just tight on calculators and the appropriate value from the sites. So really, when I'm talking about kicking the tires, that's why you do not know what you're going to get until you approach that other manager in your team and see what happens. And I think you'd be surprised if you submitted 10 offers a week every week until you finally get something, and then you do that across all your leagues, because I imagine you would get more trades, more transactions that benefit your team than what you would really figure would happen. But that's all I got for you today. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on the way out. Really helps fuels the channel, fuels me to keep dropping this content for you and everything else. Again, I want to thank you, and I'll catch you next time.